Yeah, but I think they changed it right after this. Jimmy. I think we're having
At this time, I'd like to call to order the January 2nd reorganization meeting of the Sayreville Board of Education. In accordance with Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, this public reorganization meeting of the Sayreville Board of Education has been established by sending a copy of the public meeting notice to the Home News Tribune and the Star Ledger. In addition, copies of the announcement of this meeting have been sent to the Borough Clerk, and a copy of the notice of the meeting has also been posted on the bulletin board outside the office of the Secretary to the Board. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first order of business tonight is to announce the official results of the board election held on November 5th, 2019 for the three-year term candidates. Mr. John Walsh received 3,045 votes. Mrs. Lucille Bloom received 2,981 votes. Mr. Daniel Balca received 2,764 votes. And Mr. James Bello received 2,378 votes. Our next order of business is the swearing in of the newly elected board members. This will be done in alphabetical order, beginning with Mr. Balca, then Mrs. Bloom, and Mr. Walsh at the podium.
God bless you.
I, Daniel Balca, do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear in true faith and allegiance to the same manner and the governments established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people, so help me God. I, Daniel Balca, do solemnly affirm that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of the Board of Education, and I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1, nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed under NJS 18A 12-1, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Mrs. Bloom?
He's coming.
Yeah, she's
I, Lucille Bloom, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and the states under the authority of the people, so help me God. I, Lucille Bloom, do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of the Board of Education, and that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1, or disqualified due to convictions of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A 12-1, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
I, John Walsh, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the government established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people, so help me God. I, John Walsh, do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of the Board of Education, and that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19-4-1, nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A-12-1, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of the office according to the best of my ability. So help me God. Thanks. I always want to do the I statement joke, but it's a little serious.
Okay, now I'm just going to take the roll call alphabetically. Mr. Balco?
Here.
Mrs. Bacco? Here. Mrs. Bloom?
Here.
Mr. Callahan?
Here.
Mr. Syak?
Here.
Mr. Esposito?
Here.
Mrs. Kenny?
Here.
Ms. Rubio?
Here.
And Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Okay. At this time, I will open up to the floor for nominations for the President of the Board of Education.
I'd like to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I skipped a part. At this time, if we could just go around and have the board members read the New Jersey School Board Association Code of Ethics, and we're going to start with Mr. Balco.
I will uphold and enforce all laws, rules, and regulations of the State Board of Education and court orders pertaining to schools. Desired changes shall be brought about only through legal and ethical procedures.
And Mrs. Bacco?
Repeat.
The highlighted.
Yeah, the highlighted section.
I will make decisions in terms of the educational welfare of children and will seek to develop and maintain public schools that meet the individual needs of all children regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing.
I will confine my board action to policymaking, planning, and appraisal, and I will help to frame policies and plans only after the board has consulted those who will be affected by them.
I will carry out my responsibility not to administer the schools, but together with my fellow board members to see that they are well-run.
I will recognize that authority rests with the Board of Education and will make no personal promises nor take any private action that may compromise the board.
I will refuse to surrender my independent judgment to special interest or partisan political groups, or to use the schools for personal gain or for the gain of friends.
I will hold confidential all matters pertaining to the schools which, if disclosed, would needlessly injure individuals or the schools. In all other matters, I will provide accurate information and, in concert with my fellow board members, interpret to the staff the aspirations of the community for its school.
I will vote to appoint the best qualified personnel available after consideration of the recommendation of the Chief Administrative Officer. I will support and protect school personnel in proper performance of their duties.
I will refer all complaints to the Chief Administrative Officer and will act on the complaints at public meetings only after failure of an administrative solution.
Thank you. So at this time, I will open up to the floor for nominations for President of the Board of Education.
I would like to nominate Kevin Syak for Board of Ed President.
I will second.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to close the nomination for the President of the Board of Education?
So moved.
By Mrs. Rubio, second by Mrs. Bacco?
Mrs. Bloom.
Oh, Mrs. Bloom, okay, thank you. All right, I'll take a roll call vote to close nominations. Mr. Balco?
Yes.
Mrs. Bacco?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Syak?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mrs. Kenny?
Yes.
Ms. Rubio?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Okay. Can I have a motion to affirm Mr. Kevin Syak as President of the Board of Education?
So moved.
By Mrs. Bloom, second by Mr. Callahan. Okay, and this will be the official roll call to affirm Mr. Kevin Syak as President of the Board of Education. Mr. Balco?
No.
Mrs. Bacco?
No.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Syak?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mrs. Kenny?
Yes.
Ms. Rubio?
Yes.
And Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Okay, that concludes our vote for
President.
the President. Congratulations, Mr. Syak.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hill.
Did you say present?
Okay, Ms. Hill, return to your seat, please.
She runs an efficient meeting, I gotta say.
But I need her on my right side.
All right, at this time, I'll open it up to nominations for the office of Vice President.
I would like to nominate Anthony Esposito for Vice President.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Callahan. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close nominations.
So moved.
By Mr. Walsh, second by Mr. Callahan. Roll call to close nominations.
Mr. Balco?
Yes.
Mrs. Bacco?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Syak?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mrs. Kenny?
Yes.
Ms. Rubio?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Okay, at this time, I'll take a motion to affirm Mr. Anthony Esposito as Vice President of the Sayreville Board of Education.
So moved.
By Mrs. Rubio, do I have a second?
Second.
By Mrs. Bloom. Any remarks? Roll call on Mr. Anthony Esposito as Vice President of the Sayreville Board of Education.
Mr. Balco?
Yes.
Mrs. Bacco?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Syak?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mrs. Kenny?
Yes.
Ms. Rubio?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito, congratulations, and you're in the lead by 2. Nice job. All right, at this time, we'll move forward with our reorganization agenda. If there's no objection, I'm going to take the entire reorganization agenda as one consent agenda. Would anyone like any items removed from the consent agenda before we vote on it for further discussion? Okay, hearing none then, can I have a motion to approve the reorganization agenda?
Mr. Stack, may I make a comment? For one reason or another, the agenda that is here was not the revised agenda that is on the website or in the portal.
With the date on the,
It's October 13th, and not the 20th. It's noted on there. So if you don't mind a friendly revision to that, it's on the agenda right now. It should be October 13th for the Board of Education meeting in October.
all right, thank you. Can I entertain a motion then to approve the reorganization agenda with an amendment of the Tuesday, October 20th, 2020 meeting to be held at the same time on Tuesday, and location at the same time on Tuesday, October 13th, 2020?
So moved.
By Mrs. Bloom.
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Walsh. Are there any remarks on the reorganization agenda? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please, Ms. Hill.
Mr. Balco?
Yes.
Mrs. Bacco?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Syak?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mrs. Kenny?
Yes.
Ms. Rubio?
Yes.
And Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Okay. At this time, then, we will retire into executive session. There will be a meeting following executive session at 7:30 to approve some additional business items, which are listed on the business meeting agenda this evening, at which time we'll also entertain public comment as well as comments from the president and vice president about the upcoming year of the board. So I'll entertain a motion to retire into executive session.
So moved.
By Mrs. Bloom, do I have a second?
Second.
By Mr. Callahan. Ms. Hill, would you please read the resolution?
Whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances. And whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Borough of Sayreville, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion of and action upon the hereinafter specified subject matters. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Personnel, including but not limited to agenda items. It is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter shall be made public at such time as the need for non-disclosure no longer exists. This resolution shall take effect immediately. Mr. Balco?
Yes.
Mrs. Bacco?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Syak?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mrs. Kenny?
Yes.
Ms. Rubio?
Yes.
And Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Okay, the meeting is closed. We'll resume at 7:30. Thank you. Okay, good evening. Welcome to the business portion meeting of the Board of Education. Ms. Hill, this is a continuation of where we left off, correct? So I don't need to give the public notice?
Correct.
Okay, very good. Same meeting. All right, so I'll have a roll call to document who's here and who's not.
Mr. Balco?
Here.
Mrs. Bacco?
Here.
Mrs. Bloom?
Here.
Mr. Callahan?
Here.
Mr. Syak?
Here.
Mr. Esposito?
Here.
Mrs. Kenny?
Here.
Ms. Rubio?
Here.
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Okay. Executive session summary. Ms. Hill, could you summarize executive for us?
The board discussed personnel, including but not limited to agenda items.
Very good summary. Student council representatives report. We don't have our student council representatives here. Ms. Hill, there are also no minutes yet, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so there are no minutes. We'll move on to board president comments. Just again, thank you to the board for their support in electing me as president again for another year. I think we probably agree that the biggest item facing the board this coming year is the upcoming referendum that we're putting out there for the voting public. And really, as I said at the last meeting, this is a chance to really define the Sayreville Public Schools for the next generation. This is Vision 2030. So that's really going to be the focus, I think, of the board's work, is getting that referendum passed, informing the community about its benefits, and building the support needed to get it done. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Esposito, if he has any comments as vice president.
Just, again, I'd like to thank everybody as well. It's greatly appreciated, and I really do enjoy working with everybody on this board. It really is an honor. And, you know, as Kevin said, we're entering these next 12 months are going to be extremely exciting, extremely busy, and there's a lot of work to be done. But if all goes well, we're going to have state-of-the-art schools. Our test scores keep rising, and we just signed a new leader in Dr. Labby to take us aboard, and we have a great board here that works together, and it's exciting times to come. So we look forward to the next 12 months. It's going to be interesting.
Yes, it will. All right, thank you, Mr. Esposito. We'll move on to board discussion, and we just met, right before Christmas, so I don't know if there's any additional board discussion. Anyone have any discussion items or any reports from committees? Okay, hearing none. Following the reorganization meeting, Mr. Balco pointed out to me that I need to abstain on CME Associates on the appointment of them as architect. So I think since the board's already passed that, I need a motion by the board to reconsider.
So moved.
By Mr. Callahan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Bloom. All in favor of reconsidering the item? Aye. Opposed? Carried? Okay, then Ms. Hill, actually, to the board, I need a motion to appoint CME as the...
So moved.
Thank you. By Mr. Walsh. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Mr. Callahan. Are there any comments on the appointment of CME? All right, now we're going to do a roll call, and I'm going to try to do this right.
Okay, Mr. Balco?
Yes.
Mrs. Bacco?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Syak?
Abstain.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mrs. Kenny?
Yes.
Ms. Rubio?
Yes.
And Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Okay, and thank you, Mr. Balco, for pointing that out. All right, we'll move on then with no discussion to board approval of the, see, is there a public portion on here?
Yeah.
There is no public portion.
Oh, it should be. I apologize for that.
That's okay. All right, so we'll open it up to public for any item that's on the agenda. If you wish to speak, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Okay, hearing no public, we'll close public at this time, and we'll move on. Dr. Lab, do you have any comments on your superintendent's report?
Yes, just a few comments on finance and infrastructures, number 1 and 2. We're asking you to approve the withdrawal of some money from capital reserve so that we can pay for professional services for the secure retention vestibule at the Wilson Elementary School, as well as the HVAC at Sayreville War Memorial High School in the gymnasium. You can find that on page 2. Student achievement, we do have some new courses that we're going to be offering. We need you to approve. They are Business Capstone, Introduction to Tomorrow's Teachers, and Managerial Accounting Honors. Naturally, those are at the high school. You can find that on page 3. In governance, we're asking you to approve the second reading of some one new Board of Education policy regulation, the revision of several others that we introduced to you during our December 17th business meeting. And in personnel, naturally, we're always asking you to approve the hiring of new certificated and non-certificated staff, particularly the hiring or promotion of Nancy Menino, who was formerly our Assistant Director of Food Services. We're asking you now to appoint her as the Director of Food Services. Nancy has done a tremendous job for us, not only in the capacity of Assistant Director of Food Services, but in her very long and very successful career that she's had here in Sayreville. Always, we interviewed some fine candidates, but she was by far the most outstanding. And she has, since I've had the opportunity to know her while working in Sayreville, she has always impressed me by the level of professionalism that she demonstrates when providing customer service, when interacting with staff, and most importantly, the dedication that she demonstrates, not only to the school district, but to the students that she serves so well. So it's my honor to recommend to you the appointment of Ms. Nancy Menino as the District Food Services Director. And finally, we're asking you to approve the transfer, the voluntary transfer of a certificated staff member. You can find that in the addendum.
Okay, are there any comments on the superintendent's report? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the superintendent's report.
So moved.
By Mrs. Bloom, do I have a second?
Second.
By Mrs., I saw a nod from Mrs. Rubio. And
Give it to Rubio.
All right, it's going to Mrs. Rubio as a second. Just two comments on the items on the superintendent's report. There are two typographical corrections. They don't change the policies, but on admissions, Mrs. Kenny pointed out that there is an "and" where it should be an "and" in the policy. And then also on the dress code, bandana is spelled with two N's and it should only be one. So if the board will allow me to make those typographical corrections, other than that, the policies are approved, will be approved.
So the typos are not on the agenda, they're
They're
in the policies? Okay.
Yeah, no, the agenda's fine, they're in the policies themselves.
Oh,
At least someone read your policies.
Yeah, and I'm greatly appreciative of that.
well, let's
concerned
let's
about
speak clearly.
bandanas
She
myself.
didn't
I'm
just
going back
read
and
them,
forth
she red penned them.
Oh, yes, she did. And you know what, but that's okay. And you know what, it's very possible that she may find herself with a spot on the policy committee this year.
I'll be the proofreader.
I think that's a great idea.
And then, Mrs. Menino, congratulations on your new position. And I know we can applaud. And I know in addition to everything Dr. Labby said, you go back with this district a long way. And I was speaking about referendum before, and I still remember all of your help in getting an addition to Arlett School, which allowed us to have a real cafeteria and a real gymnasium and a real library and a real auditorium space as well. So your service to the Sayreville School District, has been in many different capacities as a parent, as a resident, as a community member, and as a staff member. And we know you're going to do great in your new role. Thank you so much. So congratulations. All right, any other comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a roll call. Ms. Hill?
Mr. Falco?
A number 2, no, and D number 6, no. Yes on all other items.
Mrs. Becko?
No on number 6, page 6, everything else, yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Syak?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mrs. Kenny?
Yes.
Ms. Rubio?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Okay. All right, at this time, I'll open it up to public for any item concerning the district. If you wish to speak, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. And hearing none, we'll close public. And our next meeting is Tuesday, January 21st, 2020. So thank you all, and Happy New Year. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
By Mrs. Bloom, do I have a second?
Second.
By Mr. Walsh, all in favor? Aye.
Just gonna let me have that one.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.